Hi, thanks for the introduction. My name is Paul DeSalvo. I'm the Business Intelligence Manager at Kipsu, and really excited to be talking about data optimization for the lean startup. I work at a company called Kipsu, and Kipsu is a digital messaging platform. We empower service individuals to connect with their customers using SMS and other over-the-top messengers. So really cool way for them to enhance communication. So we have a lot of messaging data and a lot of really interesting growth pains along the way, with data obviously being one of them. I'm really excited to be talking about the data at a lean startup because there's some interesting constraints that you experience. I think for one is just a lean team and just limited engineering resources. The other being just having not a big budget to work with. And so really being diligent about how we approach the problem and really making sure that we have kind of the best system in place to keep delivering value internally and to our customers. So for today's session, I want to talk about the challenges that we experienced kind of when I joined and took over analytics, and how we look to solve those and what our current stack looks like today. And so this visual is just going to show kind of some of the pieces that we had in place to get from raw data to final presentation. When there's kind of an evolution of how data gets transformed as the company grows. And when you're smaller, a lot of the pain points will come along just accessing kind of your production data and your MySQL database. It's really common for us to just have like a repository of SQL queries that we use to for a variety of different use cases. And kind of what ends up happening is you as the company grows, you get more data requests, you have more people join the team, you have varying skill sets, and the query repository kind of overgrows its purpose. It sometimes doesn't solve every single use case. It becomes hard to manage. Some team members might not even want to use SQL. They can be intimidated by it. With a lot of the, it's kind of funny when you look at SQL, because we did a really good job of having that data accessible to the team. So we didn't really have the problem of siloed data sets or people not having access to the data. It was really just a challenge of manipulating that data and getting it to a spot. And so I spent a lot of time just getting those custom queries in place. And so that works, for a while until eventually you get to the point where you start adding in third-party data, right? And so I think Salesforce is our friend and our enemy in a sense that we rely on it a lot for storing a lot of this data. But when it comes to wanting to work with that data with your production data, that can just be a whole nightmare in itself. And so first step is just downloading MySQL data, downloading Salesforce data, putting that into a spreadsheet, getting some VLOOKUPs, and it might end there. You might be using Google Sheets as kind of an impromptu visualization tool. You might be taking that and throwing it into a Keynote. Regardless of the fact, it's that kind of data stack, if you call it, is just super manual and very time consuming to get from point A to point B. And so I think from there, we go to the next step of, okay, let's put some Python scripts because we can help automate some of the ingestion of that data and some, put a little bit more thought process into making a little more systematic of that data transformation. And that all works great for some simple flows. But then, you run into the challenge of how do I take my, final, pandas data frame and put that into a Keynote or make that available to someone who has no idea what Python is. And I think other context for us is our data team is just, it's just me, and I'm working with a team of customer, success representatives. Their primary role is not doing data analytics. And so they're really trying to just get the data, present it to a customer, or, with our product analysts, take that data, bring it to internal stakeholders, and try and see, maybe how an enhancement's performing, or how, we can use data to influence, product direction. And so, where a lot of the bottleneck for us was, we've got access to the raw data, but just transforming it was just not a consistent way. It wasn't being performed the same way every time. We're doing the same transformations every single time we had to do an analysis. And Google Sheets and Excel, they're great for small, for small things, or just kind of depends on your use case. But as data volumes increase, and as more people are trying to touch that, there's a lot of room for error, and there's just a lot of room for inconsistent and just being a really, really slow process. And with those tools in the middle, there's not necessarily a clean connection to a BI tool, so the whole flow is, you're always going to have this manual process in between. So I think, just to summarize this, is like we had a lot of the classic problems that you experience when you're a growing startup, of just increasing data volumes, increasing the number of third-party apps, and just using kind of this tool set to get from point A to point B. And so when we're thinking about what we want to get out of our data and how we want that to work, I think a critical one for me is answering business questions in less than a day. And what that means is, like, if an executive stakeholder, or someone in the business is asking a question about how an enhancement is performing, or any of these kind of like routine data points that should be made available, getting that answer to them the same day totally transforms your conversations internally, and just helps drive direction. If it's taking 2 weeks, and sometimes it was, to just get an answer to a question, that it just becomes irrelevant. And now we that all that time you spent trying to aggregate that data just was wasted time, and it just took away time from your primary responsibility. You might be a customer success representative, or you might be working on support, and what data analysis isn't your primary job, but yet you're spending all your time aggregating data for that. And so that's a key consideration with our data stack, is anything we put in place, we want to be able to make changes and do that stuff quickly, and not have to rely on a whole suite of tools to get there. This next bullet point, I think, is kind of a given with a lot of cloud technology. And other context for us is we didn't have a lot of legacy things. We're totally cloud-based. So for us, we've got all the data there. It's just a matter of getting that pushed over into a system that, or a process where, people have access to that. And so reports and dashboards, that are, teed up, we already have it. They just need to get refreshed with new data. And it's just not a manual process to get that data pushed in. This next bullet might be specific to us, but I think it's still relevant to a lot of companies. Kipsu is a suite, or is a tool that is sometimes used within a larger suite of different tools that either a hotel or whatever type of industry is using to deliver value to their customers. And so a lot of our customers might have their own sort of data warehouse or their own data infrastructure, and they want to bring in our data, into like a larger dashboard or presentation, so that they can show, Kipsu KPIs in their, in their data, bring that to their executive stakeholders, and help, almost help us prove the value that, they're getting a lot of usage out of this. And empowering them with the raw data, and not having us be the gatekeepers, is kind of a nice benefit, where it sometimes can offload some of the now analytics that we're doing, but can also just help them kind of understand the data and get more engagement out of them with the product. And this last bullet on archiving less frequently used data, I think one thing that we learn as we add more third-party applications, and you get, we store a lot of data sometimes through there. They end up sometimes being the primary data sources for specific use cases that we're using. And, with some, we learn that they don't have a good data infrastructure, and they might be deleting data after 60 days. That might not be a problem until, a year from now, you realize that, oh, actually, we want to use that data for this analysis, and you don't have access to it anymore. And so we wanted to be able to way to like a centralized spot where we can just store this, and you can do it cheaply. And so kind of going to like to the stack is like, okay, so what is kind of the infrastructure that we want to get put in place here and be able to, deliver on these outcomes. When I started having conversations with different vendors, one thing you learn is that there are a lot of different tools out there, and there's a lot of different ways people are solving data challenges. There's sometimes tools that are very niche and they do one specific thing. And this landscape just changes so fast. And so for us, it was just important just to have just as few tools as possible. One, just, it's so easy to get your data spread out between 10 tools or 10 different things, and you have no idea where that data lives. You have no idea where it's tracking. You lose track of where transformations are happening. There's a lot of authentication that happens. You have to hand this off, and the more tools you have too, the more spread out you get. And so for us, it was, fundamentally what data engineering for me is, I need to be able to read from somewhere, transform it, and then write. And that, like, simple as that. We also just didn't want to get like locked into any sort of like data warehouse like ecosystem. So sometimes you have to run everything on one platform or one cloud platform, or if you're in this ecosystem, then you have access to these ones, but you don't over here. And with the data technology, honestly, it's just so many things change like every year, even like every month. And if there's a new data warehouse entrant that can do things faster and cheaper, I want to be able to jump on that. With being a lean startup, we don't have the luxury of just getting all these tools that might do the job, but they don't do it efficiently because you're just throwing money at the problem. And that's not what we were looking to do. We really wanted to be able to make sure that if we're spending money on data transformations, we're doing that once, or we're doing that like as few times as possible. We're doing it effectively. We just want to be processing, new and updated data, not everything every single time. And just running up a large budget just because we're throwing resources at the problem. Like that's not our goal here. We want to be able to do this. We want to be able to do this in a way that can support our budget. Because the other thing too is it's with a lean startup. Every dollar you're spending on this means you're not spending a dollar on somewhere else. So this has to be justified that we're doing this that way. Also, with data, SQL has become the language of data, and especially with manipulating data, you can do a lot with SQL, and it becomes, for us, there's really no transformation that we can't do with SQL, and it just makes it easier with getting other people involved or other engineers involved in the product and the project. They can easily kind of understand like what you're doing. Another bonus, I think originally we set out like it was a bonus to have Python, but I think the more and more you go through this, it does become a requirement to have Python available. SQL is great for manipulating data, but in terms of connecting to like other data sources that might be less frequently used, like we've got some third-party apps that are just kind of unique to our business that you don't really have I wouldn't expect a native connector just because, why take the time to do when few people use it. But as long as there's an API that exists, we can just use Python to read it. We can even use Python to scrape websites and stuff like that. So it does become an important component to getting all of that data in kind of one place. The final piece with this too is always looking for like a long-term partner. Our data challenges today are not going to be our data challenges in a year from now. We're going to add new technology. The technology even that exists today is going to change. We're going to add new data points. We're going to have new transformations that we're going to need to do. And just having someone who's like been through the process or can help walk us through it, because this is new for so many people. And especially with the lean startup, you might not have the experienced folks who know how to do that. Or you might have that, but you're trying to get to value quickly. And the less you have to spend trying to like figure the stuff out on your own, and the more you have someone who can just kind of help guide you, just makes this whole process so much quicker. And so kind of where we have ended with is using Ascend as our kind of first phase in this whole stack. And we've just been kind of really happy that it's met our expectations on so many fronts. I think just from the beginning, when going through the demo, it was just so clear how they've made the whole data engineering process so simple. You know, there's a trade-off between, you know, delivering value and working on your infrastructure, and you could spend all day working on your infrastructure and not deliver value to your customer. And that's like the last thing I wanted to do. They want to lose sight of the fact that, you know, we're trying to just ingest data, transform it. We know the transformations. We've got our SQL repository. We just want to be able to do that consistently at a large scale. And so with Ascend, it was just as easy as connecting our MySQL, connecting our Salesforce. I mean, they've got the native connectors built in, bringing that into one platform, literally just writing SQL on it, and then just choosing where to write. We're using, and this, I guess this is kind of like our first phase. So what I got set up quickly just to show values, we got a BigQuery instance set up, and just pushing that to Data Studio. And, you know, with the lean startup, I mean, the BigQuery free tier is pretty generous. And so we were able to get a lot of use cases done during the 30-day trial. And that was just speaking to how like easy it was. And again, I'm just managing this myself. And we were able to just automate the flow going in, push it to BigQuery. We're using Data Studio, which is another free source. Not that everything needs to be free, but just in order to, you know, I view the data, building your analytics stack as like it's a process. Like this is just phase one to just get an idea of like what type of things we'd want to get set up, what types of dashboards we want, what type of visualizations we're trying to see. And then if it doesn't meet the requirement, you know, Ascend gives us the flexibility to say, okay, let's just write this somewhere else. Like, you know, if we decide we want to keep everything within our AWS infrastructure and we want to do a Redshift instance, you know, today, we could spin one up and just point Ascend to our Redshift instance. And that would be, and we don't have to redo any of the transformations. Those are already done. And so that's been just really nice to just have that all kind of, I say it's just like, it's all kind of teed up and you can just kind of have that optionality to push it wherever you want. You know, even just the simple use case of just pushing to an SFTP, you know, that sidelined our engineers for a while. It seems like a simple thing to do of just taking data and just plopping it into an SFTP location, but you're overlooking the fact that you have to do a lot of transformations to your raw data to get there. And so with Ascend, we're already doing all the raw transformations. We just filter it down to that property or that group of whatever we want, and then we can just dump it into their SFTP and it's just all automated. And so we don't have to think about it. And so that was, again, it's just, now that is just happening in the background, you know, I do that once and I don't have to think about it anymore. It can move on to the next item and the next thing that we're tackling. And so that's been a really key thing too. And you know, the other piece I think that is always like hard to quantify is, you know, through the sales process, it wasn't just like a one and done kind of a thing. Tom, John, and Cheyenne continue to work with me throughout the process. You know, they are experienced data engineers, and so they could bring their knowledge to us, and so I didn't have to go searching through the web and trying to like figure out like how people tackle some of these challenges. They've already done it, and so they can just point me in the direction, saves me a ton of time, and helps us get to value. You know, one really cool example was, you know, they do have like a suite of pre-built connectors. So some of the main stuff that you might want to connect to, like Salesforce and MySQL, that's kind of already built. So it's pretty quick to get going. We use Zendesk, and we wanted to get some Zendesk information to do some analysis on, I forget what the specific analysis was, but we wanted to get that data in and merge it with our MySQL data. And that was an analysis that just took way too long because we're downloading data, we're trying to get the keys to match, and you know, there's multiple objects in Zendesk, and it was just kind of a mess. But Cheyenne and John helped me they literally built a custom Python connector for me to ingest that data into Ascend, and then it just made this whole process so much easier to work with. And it was cool to like learn from that, because then you could, you know, Ascend's got kind of its own little way that it's going to handle how data is brought in and partitioned and things like that. So it was a great learning experience for me too, to see how that's done. And then I could build my own, like I built my own Jira connector with it. And it just shows the flexibility that, you know, Ascend's not just like going to solve, it's not going to operate kind of in these guidelines. It's going to allow you to bring in this data from different places and have the flexibility to use SQL or Python to work with that data, and not limit you to, pre-built connectors only or pre-built like transformation. You kind of have the flexibility to do that. And I think, ultimately, back to the kind of the lean startup theme is, I'm managing this whole process myself. And I think that's just a really cool thing to be able to say in today's world of where hiring is like really tough, where budgets are really tight. We didn't need to hire a team of data engineers to build this infrastructure out. We were able to just build this out, with using Ascend and just doing the transformations. And it just made this whole process so simple. And so when it's funny with the build versus buy, because you could get a team of engineers and build this, but what's the trade-off? And it's just goes back to we're trying to deliver value to our customer. We're not trying to just create all this infrastructure to do that. And so kind of what I want to end with is I say this internally a lot. I don't know if this is a quote from somewhere, but this is kind of my mantra with this whole architecture is that you could spend months and months and months, even years, and you could have all these people and you could just build out this really complicated data infrastructure, and you've got all these different tools going on, your data's flowing in all these different spots, and you're doing all these things. But I think the thing to know is like not to lose sight on like why we're even doing this in the first place. We're trying to deliver value to our customers. We're not trying to just build data infrastructure just to build data infrastructure. If you're spending months to just build this and you're able to do just one use case, it's kind of like, what was the whole point of doing this? And not to praise Ascend too much, but it's just met our values, and just to say like they just take care of the infrastructure. Like we don't have to think about it. Like I said, we were getting value during the trial, and that just speaks to how I think with a lot of this is the architecture piece is kind of, in a sense, like figured out, or like there's a way to do it. It's just now you can just focus on like your data is the unique piece. The architecture is not necessarily going to be so unique to you, but it's just the way you're transforming data is unique, and you can focus purely on that. And so really at the end of the day, you're going to get more ROI. You're going to get ROI out of this project, the more value you can deliver to your customers. And really that's the end, the piece of this is it's the more value you can deliver, the better. And so that's kind of the key thing for us is, again, we were able to do this with our budget, just without hiring data engineers, and we were able to deliver all this value to our customers. So thank you again. I'm really excited about being able to talk about this topic with everyone, and looking forward to any questions. Thank you again for listening.